Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the lecture discussion. Actually, I will not call it a lecture. So this time, I decided to change the format of the course. So it's more like discussion meetings, and we are trying to essentially together uh, do research in this particular topic. Okay, so basic idea is to essentially design and develop, at least understand the design. We may not be able to write down the code. Those are essentially MTech and MS students will be doing it. So they are also there, some of them. Okay, so we will be starting the work. So let's start. Begin with. So I just turned on the video so that you can see me. Those of you who are new, who has probably has never seen me. So the students who are doing thesis with me have already met me. So that's for them. It's not an issue. What I will do is I can actually in between. Let me discuss actually the whole thing, the whole plan of the course, how this will go. We don't have actually what we call 3 lectures, but 2 lectures or 2 discussion meetings only. And each one is about 1 hour 15 minutes. So is 1.5 lecture duration. So which becomes 75 minutes roughly. Okay. So I will start with something that what actually you want from this particular course. So as all of you and some of you may not have been knowing, but we have been working on something, the next version of Brihaspati for a long time. Okay. Of course, it's unfunded currently, only depending on the students. There are no employees. And there's a lot of actually learning which is required in this because things are not there in the literature, and people have attempted similar systems, but for very, very specific purposes. Okay. So one of them is actually we are using along with you. The Telegram actually comes in this similar category. That's why it can do massive scale up, but still it's not purely a peer-to-peer system. Some of the system you have been already using. Okay. So what we want to learn essentially is how we are going to build up a more efficient Brihaspati 4. So based on learning which we are going to have through discussions, so we may end up in changing even design whatever we have been implementing. So that's again an iterative process. Keep on doing that. Okay. And as I have actually already shared a document with you, I can just open that. So what I'm doing, I'm now trying to compile all the notes at one place, so it becomes a kind of a comprehensive document, because I could not find such thing anywhere. Okay, it's like you can call it as a open book, a publicly available book actually. So this actually what I thought we probably can look into these aspects, especially how you design the peer-to-peer system. What are the basic issues, why we want to do it, and as we get the challenges, we have to figure out a solution. The solutions which I'm giving, we may not stick to this. I will be open, so I will be asking you one by one. Okay, and we will be talking about structured and unstructured query system. It will become much more clear as we go along. Okay. But we are more interested in a structured system for a certain reason, because these networks normally never get destroyed. They never get partitioned. They can keep on functioning all the time. And the problems can be recovered very fast. While unstructured systems can actually go haywire once in a while. Nature also follows a similar principle, but they don't use structured systems. They mostly use unstructured peer-to-peer networks. Okay. They form something called complex network actually. So that's you can see in biological systems, in environmental systems also, but they are not doing what we are going to do, with a lot of similarity. So there is nothing like God. So it's only these equal elements which together will form the whole system. For any structured system, we require distributed hash tables. So we'll be looking into all those DHT algorithms and how to characterize them. The security will be another issue. So there, I think you will also be able to get a hang of it, why we do it in a certain way. So in fact, why only your public key will be your identification in case of a blockchain network, for example. So why that has happened. And that is also true, that has happened in lot of other peer-to-peer systems. Your user ID is not available. But in case of Telegram, it is available actually, but you can modify that ID. Okay, phone numbers are not visible, but there is a central database from where you can actually figure it out. But there are systems like TalkChat where it's actually is not at all possible. So there is no user IDs, there is only public keys which are used. But there is a structure. So B4 also, Brihaspati 4, the short form is B4. We use that. Okay. Then we'll be looking into the transport network design. Again, normally this is not covered in digital communication networks, but specifically if you want to implement, you need to understand this. Okay. Typically when you are behind firewall, for example, when you are in IIT Kanpur, I am basically behind firewall, and some of you who are outside the campus, you are outside the firewall. You must be on the public network. Okay. So when I am creating without server, I am doing any communication. How you will be able to set up a connection to me? How this can be taken care of? So you'll be looking into that, how to do the firewall punching, proxies. I will be only giving kind of a architectural thing. Okay. You can try learning doing all this thing on your own, on your Linux boxes or Windows machines. Then in Brihaspati 4, we have innovated a new system. We call it a multi-layer DHT. Okay, because we probably are the only system in the world which are going to be having multiple services, like collaborative storage, peer-to-peer web. We are going to have peer-to-peer voice over IP system. We are going to have overlaid multicasting for live streaming of audio videos and making a group video chats. Okay, we will be having a universal file system and your own distributed file system. So one is going to be encrypted and only available to you, other one is a universal. And beautiful thing is that they will have actually a limited copies, but nothing will get lost. So that's why I've written that distributed peer-to-peer file system. Now these are actually not a very resilient systems. Nodes will, you can turn off your computer, network bandwidth can go haywire. So resilience is extremely important. So how that is going to be done? There is also search engine. Google, for example, does it through servers, but we can actually do a collaborative search engine implementation. There is already one implementation which exists, but we actually planned it for B4, but we found there is already one exists. We will still see how this can be reused here. Okay, torrent has been very popular, so you look into that. In fact, B4 is going to use torrent principles in their DFS to make sure that things cannot be looked into by anybody else. Of course, anyway, it's very difficult because we are going for 4098-bit keys actually. And then, of course, once you can do all this, you can do distributed mailing and messaging system with non-repudiation. So it's basically encryption as well as digital signatures embedded. Currently, mailing system does not have that. Okay, SMTP and IMAP kind of systems don't have this actually. But messaging systems can actually have it. But what, for example, WhatsApp says it's end-to-end encrypted. Actually, it is not. In between, it can be tapped into. So, but when you give it to the customers, you always say it's done that way. So, but ours is being, we have been building. So ours will be fully end-to-end encrypted actually. So mailing and messaging we are trying to combine together essentially. Okay. And but one of the biggest challenge in the design, we still don't have a solution. We will discuss that and see if solution can come up. Is building up what we call these mailing list systems. Okay, we use a mailman mailing list system in IITK. Something similar if you want to do it in a distributed fashion, how to do it. Okay. Similarly, we can actually, a lot of people have the computers or mobile phones which has pretty high computing storage and bandwidth, and they don't require it. So it can be donated actually by creating a virtual machine, and that virtual machine can be used by somebody else to safely execute the code. So I can actually split my compute job across multiple machines. It can be computed and come back. How that will be done? But this has its own challenges actually. I have not tried this so far, but we'll try to discuss this. P2P live streaming, we are pretty much, I'm quite clear about the algorithm, so I will discuss. Last time when I taught this course, I have not discussed this actually. So this has come while discussing with my students in last 1 year. Okay, so this probably is also being looked upon by one of my doctoral students. The same thing we will discuss. There is also some interesting things happening all across the world. So Brihaspati 4 we will be talking. I call it short form B4. Brihaspati 4 is slightly longer, and it's also kind of a tongue twister for most of the people. So P2P SIP is already an effort going on in ietf.org because this is for telephony. I will actually start only with telephony in the beginning. Then there is a onion routing Tor. I think almost all students invariably use for anonymous browsing, so that nobody can see when they want to use it, and this essentially forms the backbone of the darknet. Okay, so how the darknet services, or how you actually start a service and when nobody knows who you are. So there is a nice protocol in Tor. So Tor v3 I will be talking about. I actually discussed this thing last year already. Recorded lecture is there if somebody is in hurry to learn it. Okay. But it will come along the way as we go along. But I am not sure because it will be more discussion oriented, and we'll be looking into blockchain. Blockchain actually came from here, but it's not exactly that blockchain. More important is actually creating blocks and then doing chaining through the hash mechanisms actually. So block hash is becoming a part of the next block and so on, then proof of work, proof of stake. But we are not going to look into that. That's altogether different ballgame. But they use, in a sense, a similar peer-to-peer network to ensure that everybody has the same copy of the ledger or same copy of the block hashes at least. Okay. So it's the last few years you need to keep. Earlier one you can discard because that anyway now cannot be modified by anyone. But you need to know the balance or the documents which are in currently effective with all users at least. Okay, so there are all kind of variations here. I will not be digging into this. There is a separate course I think is running in institute itself on this, maybe this semester or next semester, but it's there. Then there is a DTN, delay tolerant network, which is again a very good example of peer-to-peer network. Okay, so you actually, this is done for mostly tactical applications, but can be used, has been used by essentially mobile phone, the people during when the government does a blackout of the network normally, so that people cannot use chatting things to connect to each other, but people have figured out this DTN apps. So how these algorithms actually work. So these have been used in Hong Kong during whenever these people were actually on the road against the Chinese occupation and all, against their policies. So that time it has been heavily used. In India also it has been used whenever there was a blackout which was done. Okay. So a lot of apps have come up, but I don't know. They're not very successful, not very popular. Okay. But whenever there will be an oppressive regime, these will come back again. Okay. These are again based on peer-to-peer systems. So that's a kind of an structure. So I will keep on changing. This marks scheme here is incorrect. I will be changing it. Okay. So this will be now 30. So midsem, because I have to take a midsem, I have no option. I have to take an endsem also. I will also have quizzes, which will be about 30. Okay. So it does not make total 100 actually. So since we are going to be in discussion mode, so I will just call up the name and then probably ask your opinion or suggestion or comments on anything. So that participation will also contain the marks. So if I call somebody and so how many times people have been called? So I will try to call almost everybody for their comments and suggestions, or whenever I ask a question, whatever they want to, they can say about it. So I am keeping 10 marks for that. That's for participation. This is I am trying for first time. So this makes 100. So study report becomes optional actually. Okay, this is an optional thing. If you want, you can actually to improve your marks, but you can never exceed 100. So if you got 80, this makes sense. If you are already getting 100, this does not make sense, but you can still do it actually. Okay. So you have to pick up a topic, you have to study it, submit the report, and of course, maybe I can ask you for a presentation, and that will turn out to be 20, which I will give. I have also a teaching assistant. Okay, one of my PhD students again, Ajit is there. So he will be helping you in that. Okay, so let me save this part if I have done it. Yeah. So that's was the structure. So have you been? I think I can just go around you and then get an introduction. If you have been using something which is peer to peer. Okay. So Rishabh, have you ever used a peer to peer system? And what do you think it is? How it is different than web client server?
So it's not a centralized system from my point of view, and I think I have used Telegram. I think it's a P2P system, and many other.
And anything other than Telegram?
Sir, it's a app built on the Kava blockchain. Kava basically a crypto token. App is based on that crypto. Okay, sir. So it is
Yeah.
basically a app built by Kava. It's I think it was available on Play Store, but it's not now. It's not available on that. So, sir, let me see once. Yeah, but it's P2P app. Yes, sir. It's a P2P.
Okay, so that's the one you have tried.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, almost all blockchain-based systems will be peer-to-peer. Okay,
Yes,
they have to be, otherwise they can't actually have a distributed ledger. That's the basic philosophy which goes in that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I will now actually specify the problem once I go through each one of you. Simran, what actually have you used as a peer-to-peer system? If you remember anything.
So,
If you have not used, you can say I have never used a peer-to-peer, or I am not aware of it. That is also fine.
yes, I am not aware of it.
So maybe you should dig out and see what kind of apps are existing around, and if you actually you might have used it sometimes, but you may not be aware of it. Actually.
Yes, sir,
Okay.
it might be possible.
Okay, so Apurva, Simran is, I think you are a MS student here, no?
No,
MTech
sir, I'm
student.
MTech
You are
student.
MTech. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Right. Yes, Apurva.
I have just used Telegram as peer-to-peer. Others I haven't used.
So you also have not tried this. You have also not probably heard this thing earlier. This is the first time you are hearing it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Chitij, you are Apurva, you are a BTech?
Sir, MTech.
Okay, you are in MTech. Yeah, Chitij Srivastava.
Yes, sir. I have also not heard anything about that, but as I can see, the examples such as Ubuntu and other operating systems are also working on the peer-to-peer networks. But I haven't used apart from Windows, so Linux and Ubuntu are also there. But
Ubuntu is an operating system that's not a peer-to-peer thing. But I can tell you, Windows, do you know how Windows is nowadays distributing the code? When Windows update happens, if you go into settings of Windows and check there, so it says whether you are permitting whatever you are downloading to be shared with other nodes, or you want from the other computers to updates to come. There is an option there if you see that. So that's a very good example of code distribution. So Microsoft actually has moved to this peer-to-peer based code distribution so that their servers don't get loaded whenever the updates have to be released.
Okay.
So Microsoft has moved that way actually now. I am sure Ubuntu, I am not sure. Ubuntu works actually has lot of distribution servers. We also run one in IIT Kanpur. So Ubuntu actually all packages come here and then your machine can update from that. Okay.
Okay.
So Microsoft is anybody who is in Windows and who is using genuine one, which is updating, is actually using a peer-to-peer for updating the code actually.
Updating
the operating system.
Similarly, in the
Okay, so you should go and check that.
Okay, sir. I think the same is there in the Kali Linux also, but I haven't used a lot in that.
Because that's extremely efficient. I am actually this one thing which all of you need to appreciate as we go along with the course is that this actually leads to massive scalability. I call it even a green computing. Peer-to-peer networks can also be called a green computing. Because I actually save a lot of energy, lot of carbon footprint is going to be reduced if we use this. There's one massive advantage. Okay. Bhuvan.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. So I have worked on an application where so the system was earlier used to be a single person used to use the system. So basically, I worked at MIT on they had a programming language and an editor for a language called Scratch, and I worked on the project and I enabled that the editors can be shared between multiple users, and that network was peer-to-peer. So I used.
Okay, so there was no server actually. You make a change, and then of course the change gets propagated to everybody and fused together. Yeah, that's also one thing which we thought of implementing before, but I think we are still far away. So doing a Google Drive equivalent is the first target, and then of course next will be doing collaborative authoring and collaborative essentially publishing, doing anything which is collaborative. Okay, over a peer-to-peer, and then of course dynamically modifying topology for always keeping the network to this optimum. Well, it's a big, I think, innovations are possible in the algorithm design. Okay, Bhuvan, you are with BTech or MTech?
Sir, BS Mathematics, BS.
Okay, BS Mathematics, great. Next, let me see, Ankit.
Hello. Yes, I tried. Skype is also based on P2P, so I use
Yes.
that.
Originally, when it started, it was peer-to-peer network.
Yeah, now
when Microsoft took over, they have changed it actually.
correct. Yes.
Okay, but do you know that there is even Google in the backend does not have one single use server. They have actually a large number of servers all across the world actually, even for one single application. And how these servers talk to each other is also peer-to-peer. Okay, so peer-to-peer is there even in the corporate, but it has never been pushed to the customers. Okay, customers are always been given an impression there is one server, you have to pay for using it. But businesses inside are mostly using peer-to-peer systems for essentially synchronizing their servers. So Microsoft also uses the same thing for doing their voice over IP calls over Skype. Of course, now they have made a lot of modification to Skype. It's now Microsoft Teams actually. It's no more Skype actually. Same code they have put it into Microsoft Teams and changed the UI. So both things are running. It's not an open source. Okay.
Yes,
I will come to this SIP-based architecture when I come to voice over IP. You will appreciate at that time. Okay, so next comes Shashwat.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. So for using a peer-to-peer based system, I frequently use torrent. So I believe that is an example of a peer-to-peer based system.
Right. BitTorrent is very powerful, very good actually, because it distributes the load of distributing the code to a lot of people. So Microsoft has done very smart thing. They actually have done away with what we call indexing server, and they are using probably a DHT based system, and based on that in fact, now even BitTorrent also uses DST. Earlier there was no DST in that. Okay. So once the DST will be discussed, it will become more clear. Those of you who have already studied probably can understand it actually. So Shashwat, you are also a BTech.
Sir, BS Mathematics.
Okay, BS Maths. The maths guys are there this time. So you can help me in actually figuring out the proof for stability, at least. Then Ritu is there.
Good afternoon. So actually, I'm aware of Telegram and Torrent using this peer-to-peer systems. That's
Okay. So Ritu is the MTech student. She is going to work on the thesis on B4 itself implementation.
yes.
So she probably have to even code it and look at the already existing badly written code. Okay. Students just write whatever they can. It's not bad or good, but it's okay. It has to be modified all the time. Prateek.
Good morning, sir. Prateek Sharma, PhD and power engineering.
Okay.
Sir, I used like your P2P network in like sir, one time the Tor accessing the deep web. And other experience of my P2P network is I worked on some IoT related project which uses that mesh network. I think it uses that P2P networking thing.
Yeah, that's a fully connected mesh. It's a peer-to-peer in the sense there is no central entity.
Yes, sir.
So that's about a medium access control essentially. You must have been talking
Yes.
about, but more you can do with peer-to-peer also there. So you are
Yes,
actually working with the.
Ankush Sharma, Dr. Ankush Sharma.
Oh, great. Yeah, Ankush, actually, I talked to him and then he was interested in this fully distributed system. And maybe using blockchain for essentially peer-to-peer trading of electricity.
Yes, sir. Energy market is the new thing, so all
Basically,
the
you
power
want to
engineers
do
are.
away with all operators and anybody and let the people directly buy and sell electricity which they are generating locally.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. That's a nice topic. Then Suraj is there. Yes, Suraj.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. So you are back to campus now?
No, sir. Sir, I will be come on 9th of January.
अच्छा, ठीक है.
Sir, I have used Torrent and I am aware of blockchain. Blockchain technology is also peer-to-peer.
Right. Yeah, blockchain is an interesting thing, but the basic idea there is how to avoid double spending. They don't have more emphasis on peer-to-peer. But there actually almost everybody is going to participate. That's what there's a fully connected mesh essentially. They always talk about that. Okay, they don't do fragmentation of the ledger. Okay, that I think nobody has tried there. So yeah, who is left? I am just going through, scanning through. Right, it is Meghna is there. Yes. So Meghna is in the campus. She is a MS student.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
हाँ बताओ.
Sir, I'm aware of Telegram as a peer-to-peer system and also Skype. These two I have used.
Okay, great. So at least everybody almost must have used something so far. Shreyash. So Shreyash
Yes, sir.
and doing thesis with me.
Yes, sir. So yeah, as all said, I also use Torrent, and while that now that I'm guessing that the seers and peers, whatever it was showing now, the extra data, maybe in due course of this course, I will be able to appreciate it more.
Okay.
The speed and all. Also, sir, I guess Bluetooth and Wi-Fi Direct is also kind of peer-to-peer. Is it?
That is true, is a peer-to-peer, but it's not a network. It's a peer-to-peer communication.
Okay.
So without any server. So basically, two users have to agree with each other, and then they can transact. Okay, there is no third party in between for essentially ensuring that whatever you are transacting is okay or not okay.
Right.
So in fact, now recently, Government of India also allowed that if your mobiles actually can talk on Wi-Fi direct or Bluetooth, you can transfer money also without connecting to the bank. So till I think 200 rupees it is permitted. Now it has been made to 1000 rupees. It's a direct transfer. So bank records will be updated later on whenever you will get connected. But I don't know how that system works. Probably one of you can dig out the information on that. Okay.
Right.
It's an interesting thing which Indian government is trying, because later on, even without network, you should be able to do peer-to-peer payment. Okay. But then, yeah, that mobile device if crashes, then your data is lost. But then how to ensure it is secure? There is something called wallet chips. So Samsung, I know because one of my students is working there. There is a dedicated chip which will actually hold equivalent of cash. But that chip is being authorized by bank RBI, most likely. That's what he was telling. So it cannot be duplicated. You cannot do double spending on that. Okay. So once you can actually take care of double spending, then you can use it. But that's again, I will not. This will not come to the technology for which the course is about. That's about money transactions. So maybe blockchain-based course we will do sometime later. So Ajay is also there. Ajay Chandra.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, I have used Telegram and BitTorrent, and I'm not sure whether Manets are P2P or not.
Mobile ad hoc networks.
Yes.
Yeah, because as far as the application layer is concerned, they can be anything. They need not be, but they are peer-to-peer in a sense because there is no central server. Okay. But they are not collaborating together to achieve something. Whenever I talk about peer-to-peer network, all devices are collaborating together to achieve something.
Right.
Okay, I will give you a very simple example. Okay. So for example, this is like I have a laptop. Okay, it has got say 1 terabyte of hard disk. I am not using it. Of course, nowadays you may be putting movies and all kind of softwares, cracks and everything. It will get consumed. But if I have 500 gigabyte left with me, what I can do is I can put this in a pool, collaborative pool. There is no central server, and let every software person, every student will put this 500 GB in a common pool. Now what I can do is my files can be encrypted and pushed into and can be fragmented and distributed across all other students. And I will also store all other students' fragment on my disk. If my laptop crashes, I can buy a new one, put the configuration, and my whole file system can be recreated. So I am technically created something equivalent of Google Drive. Now this is, we are through peer-to-peer collaboration, we are trying to achieve something which is a resilience actually. So even if I turn off my machine, that content will automatically move on to the machines which are alive at any point of time. So we need to ensure through an algorithm. That's one very good example which can be created. Okay. So now one thing which all of you probably will agree that all peers will be equal status entities. There is nothing, no guy who is going to be big, short, okay, and who is going to control anything. Now this is one of the reasons why there is not much business which exists with peer-to-peer system, and in fact no company has ever innovated into this. They never used it. They are only using peer-to-peer within their servers to essentially create what we call a virtually large machine, so cater to create scalability. Okay, so as more users come, they will actually provision for one more high-end server, and that will essentially will pool with the earlier servers so that more hand people can be handled by it. So that's how the Google actually provides a Gmail service or Google Drive service. Okay, but nobody has ever. There has been, I think, few attempts I am aware of, but they were discontinued. So this storage one was available from BitTorrent earlier. Okay, I am not sure how it was working because, but then we have got the algorithm which will come for discussion. So probably similar algorithm they must have used. Okay, that's my guess. So one thing is sure that these will be entities with equal status, and we will be only talking about computer programs, and they are running on multiple different systems, and they all can interact with each other whenever the connectivity is available. It may not be available all the time. That's very important. Okay. And they are all equal status thing. Nobody is a boss, so nobody can damage the network. In fact, that is also one issue which probably we will talk about. I will discuss, because I have to get clarity by discussing with all of you actually on that. Is about how to ensure that people don't create tragedy of commons. Okay. So, for example, storage example. If you are a smart enough guy and if you are selfish, and in fact, almost we assume that in the whole, there are very few people who will be altruistic. Most of the people will be selfish. Okay, there is society always gets structured in that way. We still don't know why people are altruistic, some of them, but they are. It's still a question actually. Why people sacrifice themselves for the sake of society, while a lot of them are actually this thing. But this balance is maintained. You will never find at any point of time in society that everybody is selfish or everybody is altruistic. So there is a ratio which is continuously maintained. Okay, probably that's required for stability of society. So same thing happens here. So you may say, I am not going to share my disk, but I will use other people, whatever other people are providing. Now, if everybody thinks that way, nobody will share the disk. So nobody will actually have. We will be losing what we call the advantage of resilience, which was coming because of collaboration. Okay, that's a tragedy of commons. So how to circumvent this particular thing? Of course, one way is use some kind of reputation mechanism. So other guy cooperates with you, you also cooperate. Otherwise, you don't cooperate. So if the 10 guys who are honest within themselves, they will get an advantage of resilience. The guys who are non-cooperative will not get it. So game theoretically, it's always a good idea to move towards collaboration, because you at least gain an advantage of resilience. But you ensure that whatever you are contributing, you are getting the same thing back. You are not getting more than this. So this can be set up through what we call game theory. So some kind of strategies. So that was one of the challenges which I have an idea to an extent how this can be solved. So we are trying to code that in Brihaspati 4. So we need to implement these systems. That's the idea. And important thing now. So far, you people think, okay, Skype did voice call, we can do voice call. But when the internet was built originally, nobody thought there will be client and servers. Client servers only came because the servers were probably costly machines. Bandwidth was very small. Okay. Everybody could not have a high-end machine or high storage. So there was a kind of a central node which was a kind of a mainframe computer, and everybody is attaching. So networks were built that way. But internet by design never was designed for uneven participation. It was never designed that way actually. So now, of course, since we have all the machines which are extremely powerful, we can actually build up almost anything. Any service which you see on existing internet can be built on P2P architecture. That should be technically possible. And I have not proven it, but intuitively I have so far, whatever service I can think of, I was able to make a design or an architecture which can work over P2P. Okay, equivalent can be done. Okay, so but then this remains a challenge. So we will look into one by one each service and try to design that. Okay. So essentially, I am again going through whatever I have gone through earlier. I am again starting from beginning and going through the whole process, and will correct myself wherever I have gone wrong in past. Okay. So this is one thing, one very important thing. Okay. So this we will keep in mind. Then this is a challenge which we have. So anything which can be done on the existing internet can be done on P2P. Okay. So if I miss out on some service, probably you can just let me know, and then we probably try to figure out a way to do it through P2P. Okay. So far, I have seen it is always possible. So now the problems which you are going to face the moment you make it peer-to-peer. So I need to figure out solutions for that. So one problem is this. You can turn on and off anytime. Okay, while google.com never goes off. If it goes off, it becomes a hue and cry all across the world. Okay, so this is the problem which need to be resolved. Secondly, if how you are going to have faith when you look at the Google, you have a faith of whatever it is showing. You go to a government website showing, so how that has to be done, we have to figure out a way. Okay, so that will become clear as we go along. So on and off happening, they can connect it and disconnect it to the network at any point of time. You have to figure out. Okay, they may have limited resources, storage, compute, bandwidth, some machines. So maybe a lower end smartphone will be having this problem, but there will be high end devices also which will be connected to the network. Okay, so storage is cheap, compute is ample, bandwidth is there. Okay, you have pretty high. So this in fact creates a bottleneck for servers. When all the client machines are of such high quality, high capacities actually, the server need to match the capacity to handle large number of users. So their capacity also has to be jacked up. So it's not that we make high-end servers. We just create a bigger and bigger clouds. We call it a server cloud actually. So peer-to-peer is creating nothing but a user cloud. So technically the cloud, whatever you see in the back is going to use a very similar mechanism. Okay, but within a data center, you have a advantage that it's within a premises. Okay, the network can be pretty high speed because the distances are less. And of course, you can decide, you can create a mesh also. You don't require a shared network. Okay, you can create a mesh with very high bandwidth. Okay, and you can actually still give a kind of a feel to the user as if there is a big gigantic machine which is there. So I will actually tell you, this is what actually is happening now. When I teach digital switching, I always say the network is nothing but a distributed gigantic switch. User never feels that it's a network. You connect to a network and you can get connected to anybody in the world. So I create a distributed, resilient, gigantic switch. Instead of one single switch sitting in one place in the world, I have distributed after fragmenting. That's what becomes network. Okay. Same thing is what is going to be with the computing. So user will feel there is a big gigantic computer. Okay, you can connect from anywhere you can enter, but it's a distributed collection of large number of machines all across the world. Now what we want is even user machines to also participate in this. We want to do away with the servers as such. Now the advantage which you will get with this is what? What do you think will be the biggest advantage? So I think let's see if you can go around and then find out what advantages you can perceive. Ajay, what do you think will be the advantages? Ajay, I'm asking. Who is out? Okay. Bhuvan, what do you think will be the biggest advantage?
Sir, can you tell about advantage about what I disconnected 2 times in the past?
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm actually asking is that if I go with peer-to-peer configuration, there are no servers.
Right.
Okay. So what is the advantage which is going to happen? What's the big advantage which you will get?
Sir, one is I can see is that now you don't necessarily have to have a central authority. You can distribute the authority as well. Something like what happens in blockchain. And now you also don't have single point of failures, which you can have in servers. Though it's also in the case of servers, you have stuff like load balancing, which ensures that you don't have single point of failures, but in a distributed way, you get even more security.
There is, what about auto scaling?
So in case of distributed, I think, so if you are a user, then I think you are also participating as a node. So it is scaling automatically, whereas in server, someone has to take care that you are scaling as per your user base.
Yeah, so one of the things which you can clear-cut observe is that if you are starting on a server-based system, you don't have many subscribers. On day one, you will decide, okay, I will have probably 5 lakh subscribers. You have to provision for that on day one. And that 5 lakh, it will take 5 years to reach. Okay. So for most of the time, your servers are just consuming electricity, bandwidth. You are basically the resources are being wasted. While a peer-to-peer system, you have one user, one node, you have 2 user, 2 nodes, 3 user, 3 nodes. As users are increasing, all resources are automatically scaling. So you are not wasting anything.
Right. I think for this use case, also serverless technology also solves this issue.
Yeah. So this is serverless actually now. So
Yes.
we massively scale, we save on resources. That's one big thing. What about Suresh? What about, let's move to Suresh. So what about the resilience part?
Yeah, one part I feel is reliability. Like if in server we will have to be highly reliable on that particular server, but here even if one of the nodes or one of the peer goes down, the other will take up its load and distribute and get the job done basically.
Right,
That is
right.
something.
So resilience is one of the important things because now somebody cannot do a targeted attack and kill the thing. Okay. So this is normally what happens is even if I don't have purely distributed peer-to-peer system, I have something called like Skype. Skype has something called super nodes. Okay, these are critical nodes. We call them actually in complex network. These are what we call the central nodes. So central nodes in any kind of network, in fact, any social networking thing, there will be always central node. If you kill them off or if you inoculate them, you can actually stop the phenomena, propagation phenomena of any kind can be stopped. So here that is going to be going away. That will not be there because everybody is almost equal. There is no kind of a high grade nodes in between. Of course, we can actually create peer-to-peer network of that kind. Yeah, that's a one big advantage which you will get. A few of them. So resilience, we get scalability, we get efficiency. Okay. And of course, auto scaling, which is there. These are essentially the advantages. What is going to be the negatives of this? Okay, everything cannot be positive. I have not jotted down negatives. Let's see if people can talk about. So Bhavan, what do you think will be the negatives?
Sir, I think if a lot of nodes basically collude and think to take down the network, they can do that. So there's
Yeah, but it needs more than 50%.
Yeah, 51% attack. Yeah, that can be done.
Yeah. So, but that can be subverted by algorithms.
Yes, if we are, but then I think we will have to have some sort of a. I'm not sure how we will do it with the algorithms. Like, how will we prevent it?
Yeah, we can form communities and we can isolate the part of the network which is bad. So let the bad people's community live at a separate place.
Right. Okay. Then basically, then we have a regulation body over the network.
No, there is no regulation required. It's a self-regulating system. But what happens is automatically creates something called ghettos. Okay. So that phenomena we are expecting, but once D4 gets implemented and distributed, then probably we will see this phenomena. That time we will study that.
Okay.
Okay. So ghetto could be one problem. What about speed? Have you ever tried seeing a YouTube video on a Tor network, Tor browser?
Not really.
Anybody in the class who has tried Tor browser and trying to see the YouTube video?
Yes, sir. Sir, it's very poor, sir.
Okay, so that's a problem. See, that's a negative. Now that negative now gives you a challenge. Now can you change the architecture of Tor so that that speed problem can be resolved? While anonymity is still maintained. I am leaving it as a question. I am not solving it here. Okay, but this is a nice question which still need to be probed.
So is this a solved problem or
not solved so far? Not solved. There has been there is an onion routing which is there. There is something called garlic routing people have tried. But maintaining anonymity at high speed actually is a problem. But it can be done. It can be done. But then it becomes very complex piece of algorithm which have to work in distributed fashion. But certainly it can be done through parallelism. So parallel forking and combining is what is required in that case. Okay, it will be something similar to inverse multiplexing. Okay. So inverse multiplexing is a very nice technique actually, which in fact in peer-to-peer systems you will be using. Tor is technically doing that. What you do is you want a high-speed channel, so you create, this is inverse multiplexer. It splits the traffic into multiple parts. This goes through separate virtual paths. Okay, maybe all through a different route. These are all combined again and pushed here. So what the user here is seeing is only a high-speed channel, but we are using lower speed channels, multiple of them, to create a one single high-speed channel. But we have to be now careful about the anonymity part. Who is talking to whom should not be visible to anybody. Okay, only these two ends may be knowing, or they may not be even knowing. Tor essentially is based on the principle the X does not know where is Y and Y does not know where is X. Okay. So in fact, this is the blockchain when came. The bitcoins. Bitcoins were essentially how you transact the value over a Tor network. That was basically the idea in the beginning. But later on, of course, now people are not using it over a dark net. But whenever your machine gets hacked and somebody asks for money before he will decrypt it, there is a special malware which encrypts your machine. For decryption, they ask for this thing. So that's mostly transactions are done over this, so that you can't figure out who is this other guy. So you want to keep himself safe. So yeah, the slowness of the peer-to-peer system is one of the issues. So when designing, probably these innovations are required to improve the performance. Well, that's one of the things which I have also observed, but certainly can be done. For example, the parallelism in BitTorrent. BitTorrent is peer-to-peer system, but you don't download from one peer. You download different fragments for different peers, and depending on the performance of these multiple connections, we actually make large number of connections in a torrent system when you're downloading a file. So large files can be downloaded at a much faster pace. You have to get all the fragments and then assemble them together to make the file. And you have to ensure the checksum is perfect on that. So that's one way of actually handling this. Okay. So you don't require a server. That's one important advantage with peer-to-peer. As I told, you don't require large bandwidth there. You don't require large storage. So these all things are being handled by distributed. So of course, slowness will be there, and there is a loss probability which will be there. If a node dies off, there is only 2 copies. By chance, both of them turn off, then that information will become inaccessible. Okay. So that's a clear-cut advantage which we have. There is the same thing which I mentioned already to you. So we start with the service related to voice over IP. Okay. So I am essentially going it a way that we are going to design something, and in the design process we have to identify components and then identify the algorithms. Whatever will be required as a prerequisite knowledge, because I am not sure that how many of you have gone through digital communication networks. You may not be knowing about internet. Okay, so we start with the most basic thing. That's how we started. So in fact, how I started on this journey of peer-to-peer is because I did this Brihaspati development But this was a web portal system. Okay. So I could have been happy with the web portal system and then keep on enhancing it and putting it. But at some point of time, I was not very happy, because the moment large number of students tried to access with the kind of machines which I had, it used to get essentially overloaded, and it was response used to be slow. And it was always critical to maintain the services. Was all horrible thing. And that's the time when I was supposed to scale it up to the whole country. And I figured out I probably can do it, but this will be huge cost. There is a better technique which exists. Okay. And that was peer-to-peer, and that's how my journey started into peer-to-peer systems. Okay. So essentially it came, that's why the Brihaspati 3 till that time it's a web portal. So what you are actually accessing on Brihaspati in NME ICT. So this is if you go here, this is the portal which is already running, but this is a web-based system. So I just wanted to essentially make, I can just show it to you. What is this? This is the portal which we did. Okay, this is the latest, but we stopped on the development almost for last 5 years now. Okay, this was a 5-year-old snapshot code which is running. They gave something on NIC in the beginning, but I found this cannot scale up for all the whole country. It's not possible. Okay, and being an academic, I thought maybe I will do it a different way. And then, of course, that's when the government actually said that they will not support. So since then, it has been only through students. And then I started taking this thing as a course, so that the students who are going to work probably get some idea that what we are working on. So some of them will do the thesis and contribute to the development. So one day probably it can be released and I can do away with the web-based system and do with this. So meanwhile, Telegram actually came up, and Telegram to an extent actually allows, for example, sharing of content. But again, there is no encryption within the group. So for example, the channel is not encrypted currently. So encrypted channel is only between when I do point-to-point communication between two devices. Otherwise, all can be seen by anyone. Okay, at least the Telegram owner can see. Okay, so this is not the security is what we call secrecy is not there. Security is there, but secrecy is not there in the content. That's a problem here. So we can start with the design of voice over IP service. And this is the first thing which we did, because the army officers, when they came, they wanted to have voice over IP thing for their internal use. So we started with that. We already had actually WhatsApp came later on, Telegram came later on, Skype was already there. And I don't know whether you have seen IIT Kanpur phones. So those of you who have been in the campus might have seen these. So these are SIP phones. Okay, SIP stands for Session Initiation Protocol. So our conventional telephony is now SIP based. Okay, or we are using a proprietary signal which is built by Ericsson. This is Ericsson switch which we are using actually. No, this is not Ericsson. This is a different one. This is not Ericsson. Ericsson had an earlier MD110. Now this is a different model. Sorry, so I forgot the name of the company. Which no, it's not Cisco. So I will tell you the name. I will find out. I can get it. This probably. My voice is coming. There seems to be some.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So conventional telephony is used to be very different. There used to be a normally you will have an exchange, you will have a user connected. Okay, and then you will dial the number. Exchange will now set it up the connections through this various kind of switches, and ultimately it go to somebody else, and then you will talk. Okay, so these are only nothing but switches and some intelligent software running here, which will you will just communicate to him, and this will guys set up with the whole path. Okay, and once the path has been set up, you are doing direct communication with the other entity. Communication is peer-to-peer here. Okay, so the number numeric code which you dial is what is deciding how the call will be routed. So they will just look at the destination code, based on that decide on the route. This is the way we used to work earlier. Then we move to SIP telephony. Okay, SIP stands for Session Initiation Protocol, and interestingly, so this is a session initiation protocol. You can actually look into www.ietf.org, or maybe I have shared this thing also, the specs for this. So this session initiation protocol is what is currently being used for telephony systems. So how does it operate? This is also a peer-to-peer system, but very interestingly, so you will have the internet. Your voice and video calls between two telephones are the media calls. So this need not be only audio. This can be audio, video, screen share, anything can be there. But SIP is an open standard. Your WhatsApp, Telegram, or Skype does not support SIP. They use proprietary format. Okay. They gave it, so that's why they cannot do what we call, you cannot make a call from WhatsApp and this cannot be received on Telegram or Skype. They did with private thing because they wanted to have their own what we call captive customers in a way, and they actually do figure out, they actually harvest the information which is being transacted for their own purposes, which probably is either sold out or can be used for advertising. That's how WhatsApp does it. But SIP was slightly different. This was a professional standard which came. This also is now, our IIT Kanpur exchange currently works on this. Almost all exchanges in the world now actually works on this. So they will have a SIP server. Okay. So this will be like HTTPS server is equivalent to that. In fact, a lot of messages which are used in SIP are similar to that. So my phone is no more an ordinary phone with simple play. It's a now full-fledged computer. So a small black box. I will show you the picture, I think, which we have. So if you go anywhere in the campus, you will see this phone. Okay, on all offices, all labs, this same phone is being provided. So this SIP phone is also connected to internet. So it's connected to actually our network which we have created using Ethernet. Okay, so we are using 10G Ethernet as a backbone, and then 1G Ethernet being provided to everyone. And what happens? We have these intelligent switches, Ethernet switches, which are being creating a virtual LAN. That has been done intentionally for isolating, so that you normally you cannot see what is being talked about on this phone line. Okay. When I am talking to another phone, this is through a separate VLAN. So your PC traffic which is going on will not be shared through this. So the switches now, these VLANs are configured. VLANs means I am creating technically on the same infrastructure two separate local area networks. So one is dedicated for this voice. Okay. So that's the way we have configured it. It need not be. It can work on the same Ethernet also. You can download a SIP client. There is one very popular. I have tried this experiment in my office. I downloaded on Ikiga. Ikiga is available on Linux. I think it's also available on Windows. Ikiga.net. You can go there. This SIP client I have used, and I actually have set up my office phone on this. When it is all started. Okay. So when this actually was pretty much kind of working for 3-4 months. Then I discontinued. All the time my PC is not on. My phone instrument was always on. It was powered from this Ethernet switch itself. So we use a Ethernet standard by which the power supply comes from this to the phone. So how this was operating? Okay, so there is another phone and another phone. Now good thing is that I can take my phone out, take the plug out, I can go somewhere else. And if that, unfortunately these ports are fixed, which are on the VLAN. I have to take that and the same VLAN port and connect my phone there. My phone number will not change. That's a beautiful thing about it. Okay. So there is no phone number change. I can just move around with my phone anywhere and plug it in anywhere in the VLAN socket for the phone. Now how that thing happens? So can you guess how this must be operating? In the conventional telephony, if you take this phone and then go to your friend's house and plug it there, okay, the same phone you move from here to here, will your number change or will your number remain same? In the ordinary plain old telephone system, POTS we used to call it.
It will change.
It will change there, right? Here it is not changing. So let's see if you can guess why it is happening. Meghna, can you tell why it is happening? Can you guess?
So maybe different switch, that's why.
Prateek?
Sir, actually, what happened in earlier days, right? The service provider, the telephone service provider, used to provide a particular phone number to that address only, to that port only. So
right.
it's just another device. So to buy other phone and plug to that phone, the phone number will remain same at the port only. Actually, we buy the port for that particular phone number. That's why.
It's not a mobile phone, it's a normal landline phone. And that physical wire which is coming actually is being given a number. That's a problem.
Yes,
okay.
Sir.
In this case, this phone has something called a user ID. So for example, my office phone has a phone number 7944. Okay. And you may not have an opportunity to see it, but there is also a password sitting inside it. Okay, in the beginning when we set up these phones in the campus, they actually had made a mistake that they had set to 0000 for everyone. That was the worst design. But later on, when I actually came to know of it, I told the engineers, and that time, I think the company was Orange, whose system was managing this. Now it's a different company which is managing. So they had put this password. Now these passwords are actually listed with them for each phone number. So only the guy who is coming, telephone chap, will come and will actually program it. So it is done in Computer Center. Computer Center now handles this exchange. Okay, so there is a login and password which is being given. Now what normally when a call has to be done to you, how this port will be identified? Here there was a physical wire with a number. How this phone number port will be identified in this Ethernet system? Rishabh, can you tell?
Yes, I think it's by the number, like the ID written here 7944. I think by the ID it can access to the that device.
No, how this port number will be identified, physical port. See, when somebody wants to make a call to me, he will send, his voice will be packetized, okay? And these packets have to be embedded in IP packets. IP packet has to be sent here. So how the destination and IP packet is identified?
It's by something matching. There should be some matching mechanism between the two.
Right. There has to be some code which has to be there. This code is on Ethernet is known as what? In TCP/IP network, we call this as an IP address.
Yes.
For example, when my voice packets are going, they are going all the way to your laptop. How their system knows that it has to go to your laptop. So your laptop's IP address is there somewhere in this network, and my voice packets are being converted into multiple copies, and each copy will have each one of yours IP address for one packet will be created actually on the fly, those many copies. So this is happening in the network. Okay, this can be done through multicasting actually. This is what happens in peer-to-peer system. Okay, but in central server business, server which does it. Okay, so IP address has to be identified of the destination, but the question is you can take your phone and go and plug it anywhere else. You will get a different IP address here, you will get a different IP address here, you will get a different IP address here. Okay, depending on how the IP addresses are being assigned by a dynamic server. We use something called DSCP. When you connect to Wi-Fi in the campus, your IP address is dynamically assigned by Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. So you want to call me at 7944, how you will find out what is my IP address? This is your phone. Now come to this SIP server. So can anybody try to think of a design which will solve this problem? Anshul? Well, if this problem would have been given to you, how you would have attacked this problem? Yeah, Anshul. Not there. Praveen? You can make a wild guess, even if the wrong answers are fine here. Don't worry about the correct answers.
Sir, maybe creating a lookup table?
In this node, SIP server. Or in the machines?
In the, the local network.
Yeah, suppose if I move my phone here, then how this guy will know that what is my new IP address?
Maybe that will be that lookup table value will be something, a combination of your like 7944 and that that password. Something
so
of
where
that.
Where it will be kept actually? See, my password has to be secret. It can only be with me if it is purely distributed system, or it has to be with the server. Okay, and we have faith on the server.
Sir, I think the IP address is just to connect you to the network. Anybody who tries to call you will eventually have to go to the SIP server, and then the voice data will be routed to you by that SIP server.
No, voice data is never routed through SIP server in IIT Kanpur. That's the beauty of the system. Okay, let me explain. Well, if anybody has an idea, let's see if anybody has an idea.
Can we do something like whenever I join to the network, I broadcast my my details to all the nodes, and then they can maintain a.
But how they know that if I am saying I am 7944, I am actually 7944?
So you have a passcode, right? So maybe what we can do is
everybody knows my passcode, then everybody
can. We can contact the SIP server. It can authenticate, and if the authentication is successful, the SIP server can broadcast to everyone.
So normally the best way is there is something called SIP registrar also with this. Okay, there is another server. So they are essentially mostly running on same system. In IIT Kanpur, we run 2 of them in hot standby mode. So the trick is, whenever you get attached, you will periodically register. Every phone periodically has to send a message to this SIP server telling that my login ID is this, and my IP address is so and so, and port number is so and so, which it will figure out, and it will keep that in a table. So this SIP server registrar, so this is what we call registration process. This has to happen every 30 minutes in our design. This number can be changed actually. That's how SIP servers actually operate. They will periodically register and they will authenticate using with this password. Remember, I have to now remove this SIP server and then create a peer-to-peer system. I don't want to have a server. So our target is this. So once this is there, everybody has done it. If I change my phone from here to here, it will again do registration. SIP registrar, the information will get changed. So registrar will be actually having the information of the current IP address, which is bound to a specific number, which is authenticated when the registration has been done. Same number registering again from a different IP address, the older registration will be removed. Understood this? So when a phone call has to be made, when this A want to make a phone call to B, it should connect to SIP server, make a request, I want to make a phone call. It says I want to make a phone call to so and so number. Then this SIP server can talk to SIP registrar, find out for this phone number what is the corresponding IP address and port number. It's still communication will not happen. See, otherwise anybody can directly, somebody can keep on poking you all the time if they know your IP address and port number. Okay. So these port numbers on which the media communication happens directly between them is dynamically decided. Remember, this is dynamically decided. This is not static on phone number. Now there's a very important point. So this guy will then talk to this person. It because through registration process knows where it has to do signaling. And then this guy will lift the handset. The moment that happens, this guy will figure out this connection is accepted. It will then send this person A's port number and IP address, and to this person B's port and IP address. Okay. And it will also send that what kind of capabilities. These phones may not be same make, they may be different. I may be using Akiga.net. So it may have a voice capability, and it will decide what all codecs are available with me. It will say what all video codecs are available with me, whether it's a video call or not. Okay. And all these parameters will be exchanged. And whatever is the minimal common set on which these two phones will agree. So now they will talk on directly using this. Now exchange, this SIP server is no more part of it, and you are doing direct communication. This is a peer-to-peer communication actually. Now, but set up by the SIP server. We call it an indexing server. So as a general classification is indexing server. Okay. And there is a peer-to-peer transaction between telephone. Peer-to-peer transaction between two telephones for the voice communication. Okay, that's how it is operating. Now what you people have to sit down and think about it, that we have to remove this server altogether. But where this registry will go, that's the question. Where this registry will go. Okay. And of course, that's one question. Second is, Government of India, in fact, Information Technology Act, if you are going to be reading networks, you need to know about this IT Act. Okay. This has been formed, and I think all information technology related. So earlier there used to be Indian Telegraph Act. Now that has become Indian Information Technology Act. Telegraph Act is now gone. So that was an old British act. You have to take, even you have a radio to receive a radio communication. Ordinary medium wave or short wave radios, you require a license. 50 rupees has to be given to your post office. Okay, post office used to give the license for that. All that has been abolished. License for TV and radios. Okay, so even that provision was there earlier. So this says that if required, government would like to know what these two guys are communicating. Government would also like to know that for how long they communicated. Okay. So this has to be taken care of. So how that will be done? So I'm giving a clue. There is another machine which is put there along with the server. We call it a media gateway. So because somebody is selling this equipment and phone, so that company has to obey the government. So all these things they can agree. But when it comes to peer-to-peer, there is no government. Government can only enforce if you are a company incorporated in India. And if you're not even a company, you are only volunteers, nothing can be enforced in that case. That's what is happening with TalkChat. So nothing can be enforced on TalkChat because you don't know. There is only some guy who is actually pushing the final code of the app using TalkChat protocol on the Android. So any number of people can make the TalkChat app. So protocol is all open. Okay, same thing is true with the blockchain similarly. Blockchain protocol is all open. So you can write your own client if you wish. Okay. So how this media gateway will be used to tap into the call. So call tapping requirement, call recording requirement. We call it CDR, call detail record. CDR records. And sometimes even call has to be tapped. So even in IIT Kanpur, there is a mandatory requirement. When I was head CC, we used to get essentially requests from security agencies to give the call detail information. Secondly, this phone has to talk to the BSNL or Tata, to the outside network, how that will be done. Okay. Now, same thing we will do. This is as per the SIP specification. There is another specification which is now there at the same place. We call it P2P SIP. Okay. So I did a design independently, which probably turned out to be similar design to what P2P SIP has done. So probably that's the only way you can do the design. So think about it, and probably we can continue our discussion on Tuesday from here onward. Okay. And if you have any question, please feel free to ask. However absurd the question be, does not matter. Sometimes it can give a lot of new ideas. Okay.
There is a provision in that system that we can also make call from outside. Like from my phone, I can call you to your phone number 9497944. So
right, there is a provision even for that. So you can think how that is done. Well, think of a scheme which you can design. Well, you don't worry about what design they have made. You have been asked to design it, how you would have designed it actually. So different people might come in with a different design, and I can fuse all the ideas and can probably get a better design. This is what we call design thinking process. So we will meet on Tuesday again, 2 o'clock. It's a very odd time. If people will feel later on once the airdrop is all over, we can even shift the time if it is going to be uncomfortable. There is probably a lunch time for some of you who are in the hostels. Okay. So we will figure out a way to we can change the timing slots also. But let's do it after airdrop. Okay. So let's now close now, and we'll meet on Tuesday, 2 o'clock. Thank you.